Good morning, folks. We've got a great show for you today. Normally I approach things with hey, let's take a look at what's going on. The headlines you're reading are really scary. Let's break it down and see what we're really facing. Um, Today's going to be a little different. We've got some events that are happening that are uh, nothing short of a crisis. We've got some real problems on our hands. And you need to know about it because it's something we're going to have to fight not just through the next election, through the next several elections. So go fill your cups up, grab a pen and paper, get ready. Let's do this. Good morning, folks. We have movement on our hands. We have fascist conservatives, and that's what we need to call it from now on. Not conservatism. There is no conservatism anymore. It's been destroyed. It's fascist conservatism. That is a phrase that we need to add to our lexicon and we need to be using. We have a fascist conservative movement going on right now. They are absolutely planning a historical takeover of our government. And folks, it's just I just need to explain it. I need to explain it so that you can understand the seriousness of it, exactly what we're facing. Um, there are conservative organizations all around. The Heritage Foundation. There's, Leonard Leo, and all of these billionaires have their own think tanks and their own organizations that they're funding. Well, these groups are acting in concert now. These groups are acting to take over our government and reshape it. Not just take control of the government as in we understand it as in winning an election and they implement their policies. No. That's not what we're talking about, folks. That's not what we're talking about. During the January 6th coup, and that's what it was a coup attempt. Our institutions held, which was a surprise to a lot of people, because if you talk to anyone from, say, Soviet Russia, anyone that's lived through that, they will tell you your institutions will not protect you. Ours did. Ours held by a thread. You remember we had the pages and staffers that had the wherewithal when the Capitol was being attacked. Exactly, Captain Terp, just barely by a thread. You had the pages and the staffers that had the electoral ballots, that had the wherewithal and the mind to remove the ballots from the floor of Congress and protect them. Had that not happened, the insurrectionists would have gotten to the ballots. Trump would have challenged the election because we didn't have actual certified ballots, and due to the sunset clause, he would have legally remained president. He would have seized power and kept it. And that would have been the end of our democracy. If Dan Quayle hadn't spoken for our democracy to Mike Pence when Mike Pence called him and said, can I do this? Can I do what they're asking me to do?" If Dan Quayle hadn't said, "No, no, you do not have any authority to interfere with this election at all," Pence may have gone the other way. I mean, it was this close. And to understand the danger that we're facing now, when we're going to have to go back in history, we're going to have to Rachel Matt out of this. Okay. We're going to have to look at the past a little bit to understand what we're looking at now. This is a picture from October 1922, a little over 100 years ago. If you see the guy second to the left, that's Benito Mussolini. This is the March on Rome, and it was successful. The culture, the politics, what was happening in the day allowed Benito Mussolini to go virtually unopposed, march up to the Capitol and seize power. A big fan of his, Adolf Hitler, tried the same thing a year later in November of 1923. Here we have Hitler and Ludwig and Goering, all during the march, during the beer hall putsch of 1923. You tried to do the exact same thing that Benito Mussolini did, except they weren't organized. They failed. They didn't really know their objectives. Hitler wasn't a brilliant man. He really wasn't. And he was surrounded by people that, well, frankly, were morons. He had people that had power. Let me introduce you to Gustav Ritter von Kahr. He's one of the most important people in history that you've never heard of. One second. Won't take but a second. This is Gustav Ritter von Kahr. This guy was stupid enough. He was part of the movement. He was an important guy in Hitler's ascension to power. He thought he could control Hitler. And a lot of wealthy people in Germany did. Just like we have billionaires here in the States that think that they can control whoever they put in power. Gustav Ritter von Kahr was later murdered in the Night of the Long Knives because he wouldn't bend the knee to Hitler during the beer hall putsch. I mean, if all this starts to sound cyclical, folks, if this starts to sound like things you've heard of before in January 6th, et cetera, it should. It should. Those of us that were reporting on January 6th, I was part of the Midas Roundtable that was covering January 6th hearings. There was a sentiment that was echoed over and over and over again. Hitler rose to power after the beer hall putsch, even though the coup, the beer hall putsch, failed, because it was a learning experience for him, because the Weimar Republic did not take it seriously enough. And you've heard people over and over again say, after January 6th, we didn't take it seriously enough. These people weren't getting long enough jail sentences. We weren't charging enough people. We didn't go after the people that funded it, that wrote the checks. I mean, it's years later, and we're barely going after Trump just now. Those that wrote the checks, that ran the institutes and everything that funded this, we haven't touched them. We're not going to. And that was the same mistake made in the 1920s with Hitler. And they know it. These people know it. You know, I recommend Mother Jones to you, and you have to gonna forgive me here. This is gonna be a little bit wonky, this video, because Threads doesn't have a really good player yet. But Mother Jones has put out a video. It was David Korn from Mother Jones was on the readout. And they don't have a real player on Threads yet, so I'm gonna have to try to boot it and start it. We may have to watch it twice, folks. Just hang out with me, folks. If I ran it continuously, you'd hear it looping in your ear. But Threads, I'm sure, will work on this and we'll get it going. But here we go. Let's see if we can share this and get it to work. We may have to watch it twice.
Project 2025. The goal is to oust employees they believe are standing in the way of the president's agenda and replacing them with like-minded individuals. Put this Project 2025 in the frame. How dangerous is this?
What we see with Project 2025 is a project funded at $22 million that has dozens of right-wing, far-right groups that have been in town and that are considered established. And so now they have joined forces with Trump to sort of say, this is how you can do it. We know that Trump isn't capable himself. He doesn't have the discipline, the understanding of how government works. So here we have, dozens of groups, hundreds of people, millions of dollars to put together a schematic plan for Trump to come in. And at the heart of it is getting rid of 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 or more federal workers. These are the people who, like, if the president comes in and says, I want to drill on the mall, they go, that's not what the law says, Mr. President. This is why you can't do this. The sign says that. Well, now under this plan, Trump would say, you're out of here. There's a loyalty oath. There's an oath to my policies if you don't do what I want you to say. And so the whole idea of an independent, expertise-driven civil service government workforce
would be gone.
Let me expand on that, folks. What you just heard described is a fascist takeover of our government. Those institutions that held because the people in them and their adherence to the law. Those people that they're talking about, this is Project 2025, folks. This is a real thing. This is at the point that it is in print. It has gone to the printing presses. It is in distribution. The websites are set up. I want you to stick with me. I want you to read what they have to say. This is from the Heritage Foundation, but as it's been explained to you already, this is actually not just the Heritage Foundation. This is all of these billionaire-funded fascist think tanks are working together to do this. And their project is to create a blitzkrieg takeover of the government immediately if Trump were to take office in 2024. But you have to understand that this doesn't just apply to Trump. Trump's going to lose. Trump's going to go to jail. This will also apply to DeSantis. This will apply to anyone. Imagine the people that are possibilities for the Republican Party supported by this. Project 2025 Presidential Transition Project. They're talking about establishment of a government ready to go, to blitzkrieg the government, to have executive orders written and ready to go to instantly put them in place the second a Republican president, Trump or DeSantis, takes power in 2024. The first pillar, the upcoming production of the policy book, Mandate for Leadership. They have printed several volumes of these books. This is the latest iteration of it. You can Google it, the Mandate for Leadership. This is in print. This is what they are saying, folks. Represents the work of more than 350 leading conservatives, fascist conservatives, and outlines a vision of fascist conservative success at each federal agency during the next administration. Presidential candidates won't be able to ignore what the fascist conservative movement demands in this book. Second is our outline personnel database. This, they call it a conservative LinkedIn. Folks, this isn't just discussion. This is action. They're doing this. They're creating their own version, a fascist conservative LinkedIn, where they can do the recruiting now. You've seen presidential, from transitions from one to another. There's interviewing, the press reports on it, people that are likely to go to important jobs, this and that. They've established a conservative, fascist conservative LinkedIn to have this in place, ready to go instantly the second they take power. This fascist conservative LinkedIn will launch in March and will provide an opportunity for rock-solid conservatives to place themselves in contention for roles in the next administration. They're moving on this, folks. They've got this website ready to go. The third, our Presidential Administration Academy. And this is where it gets terrifying. When conservatives do finally make it into an administration, they often don't know what to do or how to seize the gears of power effectively. Through their action, and they're talking about federal employees now, through their action, inaction, and their encyclopedic knowledge of volumes of technicalities about the federal workforce, certain career federal employees are masterful in tripping us up. They're talking about the law. They're talking about regulations. People adhering to and following the law. Trip them up. Our interactive on-demand training sessions will change that. They will turn future conservative political appointees into experts in governmental effectiveness. They're going to gut those institutions that saved us. They're telling you. They're going to gut the employees out that stand against them. And that's going to be it. That will be it. No more DOJ, no more FBI, no more anything protecting you. It will all serve the next president. Let me continue. The fourth and final pillar of the Project 2025 is our playbook, which will take the policy ideas expressed in Mandate for Leadership, the book that I just mentioned, and transform them into implementation plan for each agency to advocate to the incoming administration. What regulations and executive orders must be signed on day one? Where are the greatest needs for more political appointees? How can we effectively use the mechanisms of government to face our most challenging problems? The law. That's their most challenging problem, the law and regulations. Our playbook will put our movement to work answering questions like these. Folks, this is not a drill. This is not a drill. This is the Heritage Foundation. This is all of these, and they're telling you in their own words, every major conservative organization in Washington, D.C. is signed off on this, and they are working to formulate a plan, to formulate executive orders and appointees within institutions to gut them and ensure their fealty to the next Republican president. That's their plan. Yes, the Federalist Society, Foggy Ozark, thank you. I appreciate you. The Heritage Foundation, the Federalist Society, all of them, Grover Norquist Group, all of them are working to create a plan that everyone knows that Trump couldn't, he failed. He failed the first time. When he tried to hold on to the reins of power, you saw him at the end flailing because our institutions were standing up. And they did. They held by a thread. But we made the same mistake that they made with Hitler. We have not been harsh enough. We didn't destroy the institution around him. The jail sentences weren't long enough. The prosecutions didn't go into those that funded around him. Folks, I want to remind you. Now, this is Trump at the ellipse. This is his crowd at the Capitol. There's no difference between the images I just showed you from the March on Rome, the beer hall putsch, and this. It's all the same thing. And we're seeing that they failed. I've got great guests here, folks. In the ones I'm going to bring him in. We've got Tony Nichols here. He chaired a roundtable discussion we had on the January 6th committee. He can tell you, man. He can tell you. These folks, this was a sentiment that we had over and over and over again. This looks like the beer hall putsch. It looks like the same mistakes. We're failing. We're not going after these people hard enough. We're not prosecuting them harder. We're not gutting the movement around them. And it's left them in place to do this. The 2025 project, folks, is a textbook out in the open. They're showing it to you, declaration of fascism, where they're going to take power out of the government. Even in the executive branch, they're going to gut out the institutions in the executive branch and drop that power in the Oval Office. They're going to take Congress. You have the MAGA movement. You've got the Marjorie Taylor Greenes. You've got, Jim Jordan. You've got James Comer. All of these people that are more than willing to cede power from the legislature to the Oval Office. And then you've got the Supreme Court that's just a windsock. They go any direction. They have no longer any fealty to our Constitution. Whatever the political movement is from the fascist conservatives, the Supreme Court signs off on it. Folks, that's fascism. That is it. That's game over, game on, and they're telling you how they're going to do it. Tony, I appreciate you being here with me, bud.
I'm glad you had me on this morning. This is great. So you're talking about Project 2025, I take it.
Yep.
We're going to be talking about that a little bit on my show, and I'm going to actually have Rachel Bidikofer on this afternoon. She wanted to come on and talk about Project 2025. It was funny. I've been doing a pre-show on Monday and Friday on Discord for Patreon members, and it was funny because I text Rachel and I said, hey, you need to come on the show. And we were talking about Project 2025 in the Discord pre-hour on Monday. And she texted me while we were talking about it. She's like, yes, I need to come on and talk about Project 2025 while we were talking about it in the private room in Discord for the Patreon members. And I was like, geez. And of course, just to be clear here is that obviously they're leaning into a lot of things because they know this is coming to an end of their movement. This is why they're pretending to impeach Joe Biden at the behest of Trump. I called it yesterday in the morning and said they're doing this at the behest of Trump. And then in the afternoon, we found out, yes, he was calling this Elise Stefanik. He was on the phone with Jim Comer, Jim Jordan. I mean, Scott Perry lost his mind yesterday on the media because that guy's in big trouble with his cell phone in probably his role in the January 6th Cheeto dust kangaroo coup, as I call it. And I mean, this is all coming to a head for them. And really, this is going to be one of their last push this election. And the reason why is because Donald Trump is not only unelectable, right, in the general election, but he's totally irrelevant and becoming more and more unpopular every single time he shows his face and says anything. And this Project 2025 is only red meat for the Nazi base out there. They don't. Go ahead.
What's so dangerous about it is that this doesn't have to apply to Trump. This is any presidential candidate who is willing to accept something like this.
Exactly.
This is handing power over to them. And these idiots think that they're like, I just was talking about Gustav von Ritter earlier, Gustav Ritter von Kahr earlier, and his idiocy in thinking he thought he could control Hitler. He thought he could. And he ended up a dead man on the night of the long knives. You have these conservatives in DC that think that this is a great idea. We'll take and build a roadmap for this idiot or any of these idiots. I mean, DeSantis is an idiot also. Give them this roadmap to complete fascism, and then we're going to control them.
That's what I was just going to say about Ron DeSantis. I mean, Ron DeSantis was in an interview. I think it was Nora O'Donnell. I believe that's who he was in an interview with. And, I've heard this shit before from just people out and about in MAGA country, because I live in MAGA country. You do too. People coming across the border. Oh, just shoot them. Just shoot them when they're coming across the border. Ron DeSantis, and I told you, he was kind of alluding to this fact. Like in Iowa, when he was trying to campaign, the words that he was using was, well, if they're carrying drugs, then we should kill them at the border, which again, it's not mostly brown people carrying drugs across the border. It's Americans going to Mexico, getting the drugs and coming across the border. And they're actually seizing a lot of those drugs now that the Biden administration is actually setting good policy in place instead of something fascist like Ron DeSantis, where he's like, just shoot him. Just shoot him. And she's like, what? She questioned him. And he's like, not women and children. Not women. I mean, I'm talking about dudes coming across the border with the backpack. The worst part about it is she didn't actually push back. She didn't fucking lean into him and say, look, listen, what you're talking about is taking away the due process away from someone. You're talking about an unconstitutional act, an unlawful act. And you're talking about murder. You're talking about executing someone without due process and any kind of law. And she didn't really push on him like that and say, do you really want to suspend the Constitution and people's constitutional rights to execute them at the border because you think that you don't like them because they're brown? That's what she should have done. And really,
think about the practicality of that, Tony. Think about the practicality of it. You have to arrest people coming across the border. You have to search them, so you've got control of them. You're looking in their backpack. You see they have drugs. And Ron DeSantis wants to take that person, set them aside from the group, put a gun to their head, and execute them right there. That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying he's going to do.
No due process of law, nothing. You don't even know who this person is. You have no idea why they're coming across this imaginary line. You have no clue. But he wants to execute them because they're brown. And she should have challenged him on that, because that's the truth. That's what And even if Ron DeSantis doesn't believe that, that's the dog whistle he is yelling and screaming into, is that, yes, we're going to execute brown people. And he's like, well, not women and children. Trust me, folks, they're going to get there. They're going to get there where Ron DeSantis and Republicans are going to say, anyone, it doesn't matter who it is, they're our enemy because they're crossing this imaginary line and they're brown. I mean, this week we find news that Florida needs like 5,000 laborers to pick up the pieces from the hurricane, and no one will go there. No migrants, or people who even seem like migrants, will go there. And the reason why is because they're fascist, and they are terrified of going to Florida and never coming back.
Tony, it's not just immigration. It's not just DeSantis saying, hey, I've got a truck smuggling drugs coming across in a port of entry. I'm going to pull the truck driver out and shoot him right there on the bridge. It's not just that. You've got a little town here called Chandler that's having a meeting. They want to pass city ordinance that says if you go to Colorado and get an abortion, but you drive through Chandler, we're going to charge you with murder in the city of Chandler. It's insane. That's fascism, man. That is fascism. I mean, can you imagine a little town trying to pass an ordinance that says, okay, you went down to Waco to rob a bank, but you drove through Chandler on your way to Waco, so we're going to charge you with bank robbery in Chandler. You can't do that, but they're okay with it. They don't have any fealty to the law. And that's what I'm saying. This 2025 project is no joke. You have an entire population. You've got an entire voting bloc in this country that is thirsty for fascism. They cheer when Ron DeSantis says, we're going to murder people. They cheer when Ron DeSantis says, we're going to run all the migrants out of Florida, even when it means their own houses can't be rebuilt, man.
Well, right. And that's, we have to remember this too, right? Like, because the alarm bells are there. And the problem is, in our two-party system, we have a party that is not interested in democracy anymore. And this Project 2025 lays that out, that they're not interested in democracy. They're actually interested in destroying it so they can have an authoritarian state. And the reason why that they are doing this is the same reason why Hitler and the Nazis did this in Germany, is because they've lost the culture war, right? So because they've lost the culture war, they've lost that war, their instinct is to destroy what the culture is, right? So their idea is to absolutely break apart what the culture is. That's what the stupid, when you look at Nazi Germany, that's why Hitler made everyone wear uniforms. He got rid of the parts of society that didn't look or seem like what he wanted in his image, right? This Aryan type state. And at first it was the LGBT. When he took power as chancellor, it was the LGBTQ community, and it was his brown shirts that he killed because they were a threat to him, because they were the violent ones. I don't know if MAGA knows that, but they're some of them will be some of the first to go if this happens. Especially if Ron DeSantis were to take power, he's definitely going to get lit. Oh yeah,
there will be our own night of the long knives. Right. There will be.
Right. And then the next thing that Hitler did was he unified the country around and I don't want to make it too simple. It's called uniforms. He put everyone in uniforms. He made the country look a certain way in a certain culture that wasn't actually Germany at the time. He was trying to form a new German culture because they had lost the culture war. And really, they didn't lose the culture war. They just didn't know what their culture was after the First World War. That's really what was the biggest issue there.
You know, and the similarities are just gobsmacking. It's the same demographic. You've got young, disaffected men that have come back, guys from the military that have come back from wars that are trained, and these people are recruiting them. This is exactly what Hitler did. The majority of the German population didn't, like you said, he failed in the culture war. Hell, he failed in the first time in his own segment, just like Trump did. I mean, the parallels are terrifying, and to have the same exact things with this Project 2025, the Koch brothers and dozens of billionaires with their institutes that are 100% great with fascism because they look at a history book and they know, okay, well, we do fantastic. It doesn't matter. I mean, you look at GM and Opel in Germany in World War II, they made a fortune. Henry Ford was pro-fascist. You look at Porsche, you know, all the big industrialists, all the billionaires come out of these bloody ass movements smelling like a rose. They don't care. So the Koch brothers are funding this. They are funding this. They're funding a fascist takeover of our government. And they don't care because it doesn't affect them. You know, well, we're going to die.
And that's a good point, is because a lot of people are unaware, like when fascism, and if you go back, and again, the quintessential example of this is Germany, not exactly Italy. Italy was they had such
fascist. They were all on board.
Right. Yeah. They were all, well, not the whole nation, but Italy was a little different situation with Mussolini. And Mussolini,
he took power with no resistance.
Right, exactly.
And he just walked up and said, "I'm the boss," and they said, "Okay."
Exactly. So that's so in that instance, it's a hard example to look at how someone takes power. But in Germany is a good example of what the Republican Party is trying to do in modern day America, where again they have lost the culture war. They lost, folks. It is done. It is over with. They've lost this war. This country is not upset that LGBTQ people exist. They are not upset that migrants come here and want to work and become Americans. The majority of Americans are not upset that more and more communities throughout our country are more diversified, they have stronger equity, they have stronger equality in them. The majority of Americans are not upset about that. They actually see that as a strength that we have. We finally come to a point in our history of our nation where equity, equality, diversity, and inclusion has become realized as one of our strengths. It has been forever, but it's been a slow walk to the point where we're at. But conservatives, and I hate to use that word because it's
fascist conservatives,
right? Well,
fascist conservatives.
Well, the problem
that's what it is
since
anymore.
The late
There's no
70s,
conservative anymore.
Well,
it's
right,
fascist conservative.
But you have to remember, since the late 70s, Republicans have been disguising their fascism as conservatism. Jerry Falwell, excuse me, not Jr., but Jerry Falwell was instrumental in this to thin veil conservatism. Which is really American fascism, right? It's American fascism. They thin veiled it. They use Ronald Reagan. They continue to use this stuff with small government talk and all this shit. Government's bad, the big bad deep state government, and we still see that stupid shit in our discourse today. And the reason why it is so fascist is because we are the government. I hear so many times, in the audience hears, because I know a lot of your audience isn't my audience, but a lot of it is. We kind of overlap a little bit. But the audience here needs to understand that the Republican Party has always been a cult. It's been a cult since the late 70s, early 80s. But here's the thing, is that this talk about
Atwater and
right, exactly. This talk that we are a republic and not a democracy is just what they want us to believe. And actually, we are a constitutional republic, which is a form of democracy. Don't let them fool you. And what happened in the last 30 years is they have convinced people in this country that the government is separate from the people. We have the people and we have the government, but we are not separate. We are the government. That is what a republic is. That is what it is the ability for us to choose who goes and makes decisions for us in our democracy. That is the whole point. I mean, we moved towards more of a democratic republic when we started electing our own United States senators. We didn't used to do that. The governors would appoint those seats to the Senate. And the Senate is a whole ball of wax here, where the minority has more power than what they actually should have. And we should look at that. But the problem is we can't look at these issues until we fix this idea that we have a party in this country, one of the major parties, that wants to destroy democracy, where they should be trying to defend it, but they're not. And the reason why is because they believe authoritarianism is going to serve them, which it won't.
Tony, they're telling you flat out, not only do they want to, they have a plan now. They have a published plan. They're setting up websites to recruit the people that carry it out. They're writing the executive orders to put in place instantly the moment there isn't going to be a transition where we're like, let's talk about who are some good people to hire. They're going to have their people ready to go. They're going to have their executive orders written. And you know what you're talking about, Tony, is spot on. Yes, the culture war, we've won. We are every day getting better and better and better as a country. We're getting more and more accepting. We're becoming true brothers and sisters in this country. And it terrifies the shit out of these billionaires. And that's why they are so willing to do this. That's why they're so willing to attack us, so willing to embrace fascism, man. And that's exactly what they're doing. We can't take a breath. We have to get into that voting booth. While there is still a democracy left out there, yeah, it's a democratic republic, but it's still a democracy. While there's still a democracy out there for you to engage in, you have to do it because they're telling you, they're not hiding it. They're telling you, they're printing freaking books where they're telling you, we're going to do this. And if you don't vote, and if you don't destroy them in the voting booth, they're going to. If not in 2024, they'll do it in 2028. The moment you hand them power, they've got this plan ready to go to gut our democratic republic and turn it into a fascist state.
Can I give you another thing on what you just said? It doesn't matter if we dunk them in the trash. And I want to let the audience know the reason why it looks like I'm distracted is because I'm setting up my show as we're speaking. So I'm getting my show ready here that I'm going to do in 20 minutes because I'm going to talk a lot about this. But I'm going to talk about the MAGA civil war that's going on with this pretend impeachment that they're having. But here's the thing about the fascist. When we dunk them in the trash in the next election and we take more seats in the Senate, we take the House back, Hakeem Jeffries becomes the Speaker of the House, Joe Biden wins the presidency because I'm very confident. And I think as long as we do what we're supposed to do in our democracy, which you said engage, which is appropriate. That's the exact words we should be using in our narrative because that's the most important thing right now is to save our democracy. We have to engage in it. That's how democracy works. But here's the thing. They're not going to stop. We're not going to win the next election and be like, oh, okay, now the fascists are gone. No, they are not going to quit this. They have not been silent on these issues. Now, they have not said the quiet part out loud as much as they have in the last 6 years and the last 30, but they are adamant about changing this country into an authoritarian state, and they're hell-bent on it, and they're not going to stop. No matter how many times we put them away in elections in the next 10, 15, 20 years, it's going to be that long of a fight to get them to crawl back underneath their rock. And the problem is that ideas don't die. Fascism and the idea of fascism will not die. It just crawls underneath the rock for a generation or two. That's it.
And Tony, you know me, I believe in cleaning up my own backyard first. One of the biggest problems we have as a movement is messaging because every time you put a message out, there's 100 people that follow you and say, oh, no, I'm smarter. I got a better message. No, folks, stop calling them conservatives. Call them fascist conservatives. That is the new word for it. They're not conservatives anymore. Call them fascist conservatives. Use that when you put posts online. Use that when you talk to your friends and neighbors, fascist conservatives, because they're no longer conservatives. Messaging matters. You know, you want to disqualify them as a candidate because they disqualified themselves in what they said they're willing to embrace. They're willing to embrace fascism. You have to use the words. You cannot be uncomfortable with using your ability to speak out. Don't just vote, folks. Be part of the battle. Say fascist conservatives. Don't say conservatives. Conservatives in this country. No, fascist conservatives in this country. That is one of our biggest problems. Messaging, getting people. The Republicans have no problem. They get Frank Luntz or somebody that comes out with a catchphrase. Man, they all repeat it everywhere on every show, and then their voters repeat it, and it comes into your comments section all the time. We need to be better about that. I'm not talking about killing ideas, Tony, but I'm just saying when the messaging is right, run with it.
Can I expand on that? We
Oh,
we
go,
are
man.
we are doing a good job at getting the Democrats' messaging in order. It's getting better every single day, and I would take the fascist conservative one step further, and I would call them Republican Nazis. That's what I would do. That's what I do actually. But I go to the extreme because, and the reason why I do that with my narrative is because if we push them to the point to where they don't have a choice but to respond to those allegations that Republicans are Nazis, that is going to put them on their hind heels. It will, over time, they will suffer the consequences of branding themselves. A good example is the Republican Senate met with pro-life groups, and they want to get rid of the phrase pro-life. They want to make it pro-baby. And the reason why is because we have put the narrative out there that they are not pro-life. It is not pro-life. It's taken a long time for us to realize that we could kill their narratives and kill their messaging. A good example is Republicans did a really good job in the last 30 years of destroying the word universal. They destroyed that word. And we shouldn't use that word because they've destroyed it. We should find a better way to say things like people don't want to go broke because of a medical bill. And I know that's a long roundabout way of saying it, but it's better messaging. If we stop the catchphrase shit and stop the 2-word catchphrase, because let me tell you something that is easy to do, and we've done it to pro-life. We destroyed their messaging that took them 40 years to build. We destroyed it in a matter of 3 years after they overturned Roe v. Wade. We destroyed it up to from the point to where they were going to get rid of it with the Dobbs case, when they got rid of it, and now once it's gone, we are destroying their little catchphrases. And that's why liberals in this country, and I say liberals with a small L, not a large, I mean, I'm a capital L liberal, but small L liberals in this country should not embrace catchphrases. What we should do is we should talk about narratives and pound those narratives into the brains of everyone out there. Go ahead.
I don't mean to cut you off. I got 2 things I want to get your comment on. I think you're going to love this.
Yeah,
Midas Touch found the news
I got about 4 or 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is the video of Lauren Boebert being kicked out of the theater, talking about legislators willing to embrace fascism. She went to the Buell Theater in Denver to watch Beetlejuice, and she was so loud, so obnoxious. She was vaping and holding up her. I mean, do you not hate these people in the theater holding up her phone and videotaping, videoing the performance? Nobody around her could have a good time, but they've got the actual footage. God bless Midas Touch Network. They got the actual footage from the local news station where you can see her down there being kicked out. I'm going to fast forward to. They finally told her, "Look, we're going to call the cops if you don't leave." So she finally gets up and walks out.
I read the report from the local news agency there too last night when I seen the video, because really, honestly, the only thing significant to me is when she's flipping the people off. How Christian of her, right? I mean, that's what I would do too, is flip people off if I was kicked out of it. I mean, I'm just going to be quite honest. If I was kicked out of a place, even if I was the one being obnoxious, I'd probably flip them off as I was leaving. But it's the hypocrisy of it all. And when I read the report, it sounds like what she was doing is she was drunk or high or both, because they weren't causing as much of a disturbance before the intermission. But when
this
they
is
came
her new
back,
bow,
huh? Yeah, apparently
this is her
so.
new
I
bow
don't
with
know
her
who that is.
in a blue gray jacket there,
right? But apparently,
but I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Well, apparently, it looks like they were getting inebriated either before or at intermission. I don't know if there was THC vaping, which, hey, do what you want to do. But if you're causing a disturbance because you're fucking high or drunk inside of a show and everyone else is trying to enjoy it. The reason why they kicked her out, and we're going to call police.
Watch this, Tony. Watch this.
They're not allowed. Yeah.
See that does a little twirl there at the end? She doesn't give a damn that she was an obnoxious jackass.
She's an asshole. Well, I mean, they're all assholes really, but she in particular is quite the asshole. But here's the thing is that this isn't going to damage her. It's not. I know it feels salacious to talk about this, but I would rather talk about how much of a inept congressperson that she is, as opposed to, she went to a show. Because I think the reason why they kicked her out, there was complaints about noise, but she was recording, and there specifically says in that theater, you cannot record those performances.
Yeah.
They have specific policies that you cannot record. And she kept recording after she was asked not to. And then when they went to tell her that she needed to leave, she said, "I'm not leaving." And that was the last straw. When they ask you to leave and you won't leave, they're going to kick you out.
Yeah. One more thing real quick on the way out. We got Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene, man, on 9/11. The one day we're supposed to all come together, the one day that we have one thing that we can't really argue about. We were attacked by terrorists on September 11th, 2001, and it's a solemn day. It's a solemn day. So what does Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene, the elevator flatulator, say? If the Biden administration refuses to stop the invasion of cartel-led human and drug trafficking into our country, states should consider seceding from the Union.
I mean, yeah.
On
sure.
9/11, we're going to talk about secession.
Go ahead and secede. Do it. I mean, this is just fucking bullshit talk about civil wars and secession and all this stuff. Again, this is all just talk. The real civil war obviously is inside the Republican Party, and it's playing out in the House GOP. And everyone, this morning, the big talk on mainstream media, which they fail every time, they're concerned about a fugitive that was already apprehended. It's over. It's done. And it's from A block to D block on their channels about this guy who they captured. And in the community, it is good that they caught this guy, and this community was terrorized by this guy being on the run in Pennsylvania. But to be honest, as a national news coverage, what the hell are they doing? What are you doing? Talk about it here and there, but goddamn, don't make your entire news hour about this guy they're talking about how the planes and the heat signature, who gives a damn? They caught him. Law enforcement did their job. And if you want to talk about it, you should say Republicans want to get rid of the police that caught this guy. They want to get rid of the police that caught this guy. They want to defund police departments. They want to defund law enforcement because they're scared of being prosecuted. Hell, maybe this guy who broke into a Tractor Supply and broke out of prison, he's probably a voting Republican if he wasn't a fugitive. I don't know. It's probably a thing. I'm just saying.
Well, look, Tony, I got to wrap this up so I can throw to you a show, man. It's Wednesday, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Get to work, my friend. Get to work.
I've got the show ready. We're ready to go for here in 7 minutes. I should probably go take a quick break. I appreciate you having me on the show. We should do it more often, where I come on and pop in every couple of weeks. I know you come in on Tuesdays on my show, and I
always enjoy our conversations
on Tuesdays. So that's important, and I think we should continue to share spaces and narratives and collective ideas. And if you guys want to view the show, you go to theTonyMichaels.com. That's theTonyMichaels.com. All my links are there. You can find the show there. The show right now for today is at the top of the page. The link will be right there at the very top of theTonyMichaels.com. Catch it today, 2 full hours, as we do every single weekday, Monday through Friday, noon Eastern, 11 Central, 9 Pacific. Thanks for having me, Texas Paul. I appreciate it.
Always. Good to have you, my friend.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, we really need to wrap this up, and I want to get back to the 2025 project. I really do. Folks, I need you to ingest. This is a written plan now. This is a well-funded plan now. They have social media troll farms ready to go to push this. If you allow another Republican into power, if we don't take Congress from the Republicans, they're going to do this. And they're telling you they are. They're publishing the book for you to read. They're telling you the website that you can go to, their fascist conservative LinkedIn, to apply for the job to do this, to gut our institutions, to create a presidentially controlled fascist dictatorship. They're doing it. And they're telling they're doing it. Like the Jewel Maya Angelou told us, when someone tells you who they are, believe them. When the Republicans tell you If we win another presidential election, we are going to implement fascism. We are going to gut your institutions. We are going to turn power from the legislative branch over to the executive branch. We already have a Supreme Court more than willing to do it. Believe them. You have to vote. You know, the last couple of elections, we Democrats actually outspent Republicans, not because we got billionaire sugar daddies. We don't. We don't. The people that are funding this fascist conservative movement in this country are billionaires. Guys like Paul Singer. You know, you hear me talk about Ferris Wilks and Tim Dunn and, you know, the Kochs. I mean, they've got the Mercers, you know, I mean, and 100 people you've never heard of that have $1 billion in the bank that are funding this stuff because they know historically nothing ever happens to them. It's you and your kids that pay with blood. We can't let this happen. We just can't let this happen, folks. We have to get to the voting booth. I don't care who the nominee is. I don't care if they nominate Mickey frickin' Mouse. I don't care if they have to weekend at Bernie Joe Biden. If the man died tomorrow, I would vote for him if he was on the ticket. Because the alternative is fascism. And it's that simple. The alternative is fascism. So we have to take Congress. You have to vote. Even if you're in a red district and you think your vote doesn't matter, you think they're going to win by, 60 points, don't believe it, folks. If you get out and vote, we win every time. And please share this information. Use the messaging. Fascist conservatism. Fascist conservatism. There is no longer conservatism. Every time you go to type the word conservatism, the word fascist should be in front of it. Nice 2-word catchphrase. It works. Well, folks, we've got about 2 or 3 minutes left. I'm sorry we encroached in on the roundtable as much as we did. Any questions or comments that you have, I'm more than happy to talk about them here. We've got a couple minutes. Let's find something, a good comment from you. And folks, as usual, I appreciate all the support. I do. The mugs are up and ready to go. Go to the texaspulse.store.com. And they're all there waiting for you. Somebody will link it for you. Mr. Texas Paul will link it for you in the comments. But yeah, the mugs are ready to go. Get them while they're hot, folks. It's actually been a really wonderful pace that they've been going out at, not too much. That's one of the things that kills small businesses is that you actually are a victim of your own success. The pace has been perfect, folks. Keep it up. Keep it up. You're welcome, Laura B. Laura B says, thank you, Texas Paul. We must stop the GOP fascists. Amen. Amen. And they're telling you they are. They're telling you they are. Well, folks, damn, another hour just blew by. I want to thank Tony for being here. It's time for Tony Michaels and Hal Sparks. All my, I'm so glad you folks are here. People, Tony Michaels fam and the Sparklers, so glad to have you here. I'm glad you're here, but it is time to go. We are out of time. It is Wednesday. We've got that hard break. Y'all have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful Wednesday. Thank you for being here. Get that messaging out. Thank you, folks.